everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone 12 and compare it against the iPhone 12 Pro and see which particular phone is the better one for you. Now, the biggest thing I can definitely tell you, in my personal opinion, is number one, when you're about to go through and pick up a device, either one of these particular iPhones are still going to be pretty good for the most part. There's not too many issues. I think they both have done a pretty decent job when it comes down to it, but if you're looking at the better one, it's going to be the 12 Pro because it is a more popular, more expensive device. But at the same time, I do think if you look at something like an iPhone 12, this is also a pretty good iPhone as well. So we'll take a look at both these phones throughout this whole entire video. But if you want to pick up either one of these particular phones, links will be down in the description below. You can get that from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of these particular devices. Number one, the iPhone 12 came out back in 2020. And this is one of those types of iPhones that when it first came out, it was the successor coming from the previous generation, which is always nice to have. I love having these types of phones and, getting that type of capability. So this thing is giving you a 6.1 inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. Now, this type of panel for the most part is very good. I like the way it looks and it's a, very good looking panel nonetheless. If you're about to go through and pick up a device, I think this thing looks pretty good. And again, there's not really too many things to complain about here within this type of phone. It's a 60 Hz panel. It gets fairly bright. It's a good looking phone. And like I said before, if you're about to go through and pick up a device, I think this thing gives you a pretty good experience and a very good, outline for the most part. With the iPhone 12 Pro, this phone is also a very good looking device as well. So with this type of device, like I said before, this is also a very good looking phone as well. So it's giving you the same 6.1 inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. So it's like kind of the same way, but it's a little tiny bit different. So with this one, you're getting a 6.1 inch display, so same size, same notch size, same everything. But the advantage with something like the iPhone 12 Pro is that this phone, for the most part, does kind of give you a little bit of a better type of layout, which is kind of nice. So that right there can be another big advantage depending on who you are. It could be a pretty nice layout. And I do think this in and of itself is another really interesting thing going on here as well. So in my personal opinion, I do think this is another really cool thing. Like if you're about to go through and pick up a device, that is a really, really, I would say if it's not a better panel, then it still is a really good panel for the most part. Both these phones are also going to be going through and getting you a lightning port on the bottom of both these phones, which that in and of itself, again, is kind of a nice thing to have too. Going through and getting lightning is always fun, and you're essentially going to be getting that type of capability here as well. You're also going to be getting flat sides all throughout both these phones, and they're going to be reflective sides as well. You're getting a frosted glass back on the back of the iPhone 12 Pro, where you're getting a standard glass back on the iPhone 12 as well. So that right there is also another interesting thing going on here too. I like being able to go through and pick up either one of these phones, but the iPhone 12 Pro is definitely going to be giving you a phone that is going to be feeling a little bit better to, kind of hold and pick up for the most part. So that right there can be a nice thing to kind of think about there too. If you're wanting the better, more premium feeling phone, then definitely the iPhone 12 Pro is going to be the one for you. Both these phones are also going to be going through and giving you things like, MagSafe capability. These were actually the first iPhones to give you MagSafe. So that was always something kind of interesting going on there as well. So you're going to be able to get that type of capability here. Both these phones, like I said, hold up fairly well when it comes down to the exterior. So I do like both these phones from that particular side. But if you are wanting to go through and pick up a device, then, I would say the iPhone 12 Pro kind of gives you the edge of being the better one. But again, it is more expensive of a device. When it comes down to the cameras, this is also another interesting thing to keep in mind here as well. Both these cameras are going to be giving you a pretty solid experience when it comes down to it. So that right there is one of the bigger things to keep in mind here, because if you're wanting to go through and pick up a device, what's always nice to be able to go and buy phones that are giving you better cameras, and the 12 Pro is going to be giving you that here. The 12 Pro is giving you that triple camera setup, wide ultra-wide telephoto lens, where the iPhone 12 is giving you a dual camera setup. So this right here is also going to be somewhat of a slight difference as well, because if you're wanting the device that is going to be giving you an overall better type of layout, it does make a lot more sense to go and get something like an iPhone 12, Pro, with its multiple camera setup. Both are giving you 4K at 60 on the front and the back, which is always nice to have. I love having 4K at 60 on the front and the back, and you're definitely going to be getting that type of capability here, which is always nice. But with that being said, I would probably also say that between both, it doesn't really, at this point, they're both going to be a little grainy here and there with their cameras. They're not going to be like the best quality of all time, but I do think with both these lenses, they're both still going to be giving you a pretty solid experience, and depending on which way you want to go, you can't really go wrong with either one, because they're both going to be very solid phones. But definitely I would say the iPhone 12 Pro is probably going to be the one that would make a lot more sense to go and pick up. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there. But an area in which both these phones probably have the exact same thing going on here is probably when it comes down to its software longevity. So both these phones are basically going to be giving you the same exact software longevity for the most part. So nothing is really going to be changing here. They're both going to be giving you like the same type of longevity. They're both going to be lasting for the same amount of time. So I would probably imagine that that is also going to be another very big, very important thing to keep in mind here as well. Because if you're going to go through and pick up a device, I would probably say that this is one of the better types of devices to go and kind of buy, because they're still cheap, they're still affordable, but they're also not going to cost too much money and they're still supported with software. So those are always kind of big things to keep in mind there. But at the same time, I'd probably say if you are going to go through and like pick up some sort of a device, probably the 12 Pro would be better. But when it comes down to the software longevity side, they're relatively the same exact thing. Now, when it comes down to their battery, I never really noticed one having like way better battery life than the other one, because they're both built relatively around the same way. Like there's not really like too many big, things that I've noticed between both. I would say both are relatively good for the most part. But when it comes down to both, I'd probably say that, I like both these devices. They're both fairly good for the most part. But I would probably say that something like an iPhone 12 might be better actually than the 12 Pro when it comes down to it. On top of that, another one of these things to keep in mind here too is that between both, I feel like both these devices do give you a really good experience when it comes down to their performance. They're basically almost the same exact type of performing device. So there's not really like too many big things or too many big differences here for the most part. They're both relatively the same exact type of device. With the iPhone 12, it is giving you less RAM though. So that right there can be a big thing to keep in mind depending on who you are. If you're wanting the phone that is going to be giving you more RAM, more capability, the iPhone 12 Pro is going to be the faster one in that particular sense. So that's always one thing to kind of keep in mind there. I always feel like between both though, will you notice that big of a difference? I'm not really too sure. Like, yes, the iPhone 12 Pro should theoretically be faster, but because they have the same chipset, the only point you'd ever even see it noticeably like a big difference is if you're playing big games and loading things in the background and those types of things you might be able to notice. But for the everyday average person, it may not be that big of a deal when it comes down to it either. So at least from the performance side, it's not really like the biggest deal in the world, but it could be one of those things depending on how you're looking at it, depending on how you take it. So overall, to kind of sum up this whole entire comparison, what I can definitely tell you is that I do like both these devices. Right? I think both these phones are really good. And depending on who you are, depending on how you take it, I do feel like both these devices can give you like a pretty good experience for the most part, right? Like they're both good. They both hold up fairly well. And, depending on who you are, this is probably going to be like a pretty solid type of device to go and pick up. But with that being said, there might be some better options for you to go and pick up rather than this one. I think both these phones, like I said before, are good. They, hold up well. But when it comes down to it, I think it would probably make more sense to buy something like an iPhone 13 Pro or an iPhone, 14 Pro if you can. But a 13 or 13 Pro would definitely be a pretty good upgrade coming from these ones when it comes down to it. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there as well. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.